All right, everyone, today I'm going to be making some delicious brioche buns. I use them for my hamburgers, all kinds of sandwiches, and I'll be doing a video after this fantastic omelet sandwich similar to what Egg Slut does using this bun. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to get our room temperature milk, and we're going to add our sugar and our active dry yeast. And what we're going to do is we're going to set this aside for 15 minutes. We're going to gently mix this, and we're going to be looking for this to foam up and get that little top after 15 minutes of foam, and we'll show that to you in a little bit. And the next thing that we're going to do is I'll be using a mixer today. I usually mix by hand, which is fine if you want to do that. Just this is a really sticky dough, and it's a lot easier if you have a mixer. We're going to pour in our flour. And then some additional sugar. And I got the measurements at the bottom for those sugars, and our salt. And so we're going to throw that in, and we'll be right back as soon as this foams up. All right, so I got all my dry ingredients in the mixing bowl. I've locked it in to the mixer. I've waited the 15 minutes, so I got a nice foam from the yeast and the milk. So I'm going to pour this in as soon as I make a little well right in the middle for the liquids. Pour the milk and the yeast and sugar in. And then we're going to pour our eggs in next. And then what we're going to do is put this down, making sure that we have that hook attachment. We're going to lock this so it can't move, and we're going to start out on low first. And we're going to give this about a minute or two until we have a good mix, and then we're going to move up to high. All right, so it looks like we got everything incorporated now, and we're going to increase the power. And what we want to do is let this go until it mixes everything and gets all the ingredients off the side completely. So we're almost there. At this point, we're going to go ahead and add our butter. And we're going to let that incorporate. Had a little mistake there, that's all right. Just be careful. So we're going to let this go a couple of minutes, making sure that everything's incorporated, everything's pulled off the side. All right. So as you can see, everyth's got incorporated, and eventually you end up with this nice sticky dough. This is what you want to see. I let it go for 10 minutes. It's important that you give it enough time. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. All right, we got that nice sticky dough. I've opened it up. I gotta go ahead and get all the dough here off the hook. And a little good trick is lightly water your fingers so that it doesn't stick as much. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my hook off, and again lightly wet my fingers so I can pull this dough out. And this is what you want to see. Really nice, sticky. I'm going to go ahead and get it into a nice ball here, and we're going to put it into a bowl that's been lightly oiled, and we're going to leave that for about 2 hours to rise. All right, so it's been about 2 hours. As you can see, the dough has doubled in size, which is exactly what we want to see. Depending on the temperature of your home, you may have to leave it a little bit longer or a little bit less. The warmer it is, the faster it's going to rise. So you want to see about double. So there's a couple of ways you can do it. This recipe is good for about 8 or 10 buns. 8 being if you want them a little bit larger, 10 or 11 if you want them a little bit smaller. So just divide them up evenly. I happen to have a scale, so what I'd like to do is take it all out, put it on the scale, and then figure out what about 10 buns would be so I can get an accurate weight. All right, so I have about 48 ounces, and so I'm just going to divide that up by 10. So that's about 4.8 ounces, somewhere around there. We don't have to be exact, but we want to be close. And the reason why I do that is if everything is even, it's going to cook evenly, and they're going to look the same. They're going to be the same size, so it'll be perfect. So I'm going to do about 4.8 ounces each. So I forgot to mention, you want 2 pans ready with parchment paper on each of them, so we can put them down. And as you can see, I've divided the dough up evenly into 10 equal pieces using my scale so that they're going to end up being uniform, cook evenly, and look perfect. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make them into a ball. And what you want to do, you want to warm it up a little bit, put it into a ball, and then once you start getting that shape, you want to kind of start pulling it down and towards the underside and the center. And what that's going to do is it's going to give you a nice even top. And once we put the egg wash on the next step, it's going to look fantastic. And so we're going to do that for all 10 of these. All right, so I formed the 10 buns. As you can see, they're nice and even. I almost slid off there. So what you want to do is just make sure that you give them enough space between each other, and that's why I use the 2 pans, because they are going to expand a little bit while they're cooking, and we're actually going to leave these for another 30 to 45 minutes to proof, and then they're going to expand a little bit more as well. So once 35 minutes passes, we're going to come back and put an egg wash on it before we move them over to the oven. So I've let it proof uncovered for about 35-40 minutes. You can see it expanded a little bit. That's why we gave it some extra room. So what I'm going to do is put the egg wash over it next. And all that is just an egg. You want to beat that well so it's consistent, and just a few drops of water. And then we're going to go ahead and generously apply the egg wash over the top. Not too much, because you don't want an omelet over your brioche bun. So just make sure that there's no large clumps or anything like that. All right, all the buns are covered generously with the egg wash. So some people like to have them just plain. I prefer to put some sesame seeds or this bagel seasoning on top, which is one of my favorite flavors. So I'm just going to put a little bit on top, not too much, on each of them. So I've got my bagel seasoning on there, or sesame seeds if you want to. And in the meantime, I've turned on my oven already to 350 degrees. And once that hits 350, which it should any second now, I'm going to put them in for about 20 to 25 minutes. And once you get to that 20-minute mark, you really want to watch it. You want to watch for that golden brown color. The more egg wash you put on, the darker that it's going to get. So if you didn't put on that much, it might be a little bit lighter, but you want to make sure you don't go over 20-25 minutes. Otherwise, it may burn. I just pulled them out the oven about a minute or two ago, so they're actually still cooling, but look at these things, they're beautiful. And like I said before, just depending on how much egg wash you use, you're gonna get a lighter or darker color, and you really gotta watch them to make sure they come out just like this, perfectly fluffy. They're gonna be delicious. So they're still cooling down, but I actually can't wait. I wanna give this a taste. I usually use them for sandwiches, but there's nothing like fresh warm bread. I'm gonna throw a little bit of butter on here just to give it a taste. That smells amazing.